projectors versus TVs, right? So I've seen some of the best projectors that they make, right? I go to these conventions, like Audio Advice Lives, the Exponus, really two channels listening. I went to CEDIA 2025. I often visit a local dealer to see what they have, and there is cool things to projectors. Like I love how big and the sense of scale is with projectors. Like I will say I love that, and it gives you that quintessential cinematic feel like when you're watching a movie. So there are very, very good positives to projectors. I've seen like the latest Epson projectors that they had, seen the latest JVC projectors that they had at different conventions. And I will say with a lot of these projectors, a lot of times like they put on like Mad VR, right? Mad VR, I think it's like $5,000-$6,000 that like can give you the dynamic tone mapping. And then also I've seen them with Lumigens connected. So a lot of times, like when you look at home theaters, what you would envision a home theater have would be a projector. But I feel like more people may be kind of where I am with it, is to where, I've got like a LG OLED, right? It's an LG G4. I've got like two of them, right? And with those televisions, like the clarity is insane. Like the HDR, the Dolby Vision, like the overall, the black levels are insane, like on those televisions. And it's like when me and my girl, we would go to all of these different conventions and we would see some projectors that were, I wouldn't say close, but like very, very good in the realm of projectors. I'm talking about laser projectors and all of that. I mean, they would be upwards of like $20,000 plus. Whereas like the LG G4, like one of the televisions I got for, I think a little bit less than $3,000. And, I mean, if you've ever seen that television like on display, you would know what I'm talking about. It's just phenomenal. It's insane, right? And to get somewhat close to the black levels of that, to have to pay that much money, plus now you have to deal with tone mapping, right? To get a Mad VR, that's like $5,000 or $6,000, or a Lumigen. God knows how much you got to pay for that, to get it to be somewhat close to an LG G4 or like even some of these Sony televisions. It's like the consumer now has to think, what are you really after? Do you want like the older, like the movie experience where you have the big screen, or do you want the best fidelity that you can get? And with the advent of Dolby Vision, and then I think now they're gonna have Dolby Vision too, but Dolby Vision for now, with the advent of that, HDR 10 and HDR 10 plus, and all of that, with the advent of that, you want to see like how bright your display can get, how dark your display can get. You want to see inky blacks, right? And when I would go and I would watch like some of these Epson projectors, very, very good projectors, right? Not on the level I would think as a JVC, you know what I mean? There's other brands or whatever, but it's like for the cost, it just did not make sense. Even like they had one, I think we were looking at, it's like $6,000 range, and the colors just looked washed out to me, and it's like when you go in another room and you see one that's like, okay, I can get with this, it's like $20,000+, and I think this is probably why the consumers are moving towards. And then I think what the projectors have like a 20,000 hour like life expectancy on the bulbs, or 15 to 20,000 hour life expectancy on the bulbs before you have to change them out. And that could last you years. If we being all the way real, it could last you years. But now you got people who play video games, right? And some of these projectors, they may not be able to handle 120 hertz. So that becomes a problem. The delay, right? Input lag becomes an issue, right? And then a lot of the projectors, you got your processor hooked up. You might have the kaleidoscope, your 4K player, all of that hooked up. But you got projector. It's like so many inputs. And if you're playing like a video game, lag becomes an issue. Like if you're laggy, you could lose a match. Or if you might, let's just say you you get the new Ballerina, or you want to watch the John Wick, you want to see the inky dark, the how great the picture can get, then it's like you move more towards the television, I would feel, than the projectors. The cool thing about the projectors, I would say, that I don't think televisions can get with, right, is that you can have acoustically transparent screens, which means you can have those big speakers hidden behind the screen. And at the latest show I went to, CEDIA 2025, they had, I think the Ascendo room had like massive speakers like hid behind the projector. Like you wouldn't even know, how big those speakers were until you knew, so that's a great thing. If you got big subwoofers in, let's just say you want to have like 3 subwoofers in the front, maybe two big subwoofers in the front, and you may not have the room to do that. You know what I mean? Like you can make accommodations sometimes, like to fit, subwoofers, depending on your room, your layout, how much depth you have behind the screen. Like a lot of that matters, obviously, but you can hide all of that. Like some people may not feel like the speakers are aesthetically pleasing. They may not want like big loud speakers sitting in the front of their rooms. Like I like to see my speakers. A lot of people don't like to see their speakers. So that is the great part about a projector, and it does. It gives you that cinematic feel when you're looking at a projector and the sound is panning from left to right. You're looking directly at that, and it's panning. So it gives you a more, some people could say, immersive feeling. But I think people are getting more, I would say, creative with how they position their speakers. Like with mine, I've got my speakers to the left and the right? The TV is up on the wall, and my center channel underneath the television, right? But if you want to get like 100 and something inch, 120 inch TV, or you want to go a route to have something massive like that, then it becomes a little bit more difficult with placement of where you want to put your speakers. So that's where I feel like even the short throw projectors may shine, because you can have a projector come down and kind of cover up the speakers. So it doesn't have to be a super expensive projector. Short throw projectors, I think, are decent for their price point, but if you want the bulb projectors, you're gonna have to fork out that money. And then the maintenance, the upkeep, now you have to hear the projector in the room. And a lot of them are quiet, but a lot of them, they're there. You may either get the heat from the projector, or you get the sound, the ambient sound from the projector. And that could take you out of the movie depending on your sound system setup, the level of volume you're listening at. Like all of that, can create distractions. Like if you have like a projector making noise. So it's all dependent, but in my opinion, I think you can't go wrong with what you like. If you like the projector, get the projector. If you can afford the projector, get the projector, right? But if the projector may not work for your living space, maybe the way your living room is designed, or your theater room is designed, your man cave is designed, you can't have a projector. Or maybe you just don't have anywhere to mount it. Then the televisions become a very good option. But I feel like personally, with some, like even at CEDIA 2025, some of these I'm talking about like huge, like televisions, right? Way beyond like, like 200 inches or whatever, like massive, like televisions, right? But close to 200 inches, like the fidelity, clarity that they had on some of those televisions are insane. But it's like, where do you put the center channel becomes the problem. You know what I'm saying? So it just depends on your setup and what you want to do. My personal opinion, I like projectors, and they give you that cinematic feel, but for the cost of a projector, you can get a very, very great high-end, high-fidelity television with Dolby Vision. And a lot of projectors don't even have Dolby Vision. Some of them do, some of them don't. You're going to get higher refresh rates a lot of times, with something that people don't think about. You may not have to have a calibrator come in. Some televisions, some people may want a calibrator to come in. Maybe they like what the calibrator sees. And I don't know. I think a lot of these televisions out of the box look amazing. Now, especially LG, Sony, they look amazing. So you may not have to have an integrator or a calibrator come in and do all that. You don't need a Mad VR, even though you can hook a Mad VR up to a television. I think the tone mapping on some of these televisions is so good. Like or what they're doing with the television, it looks so good. You don't need it. And then even some of these 4K UHD players, like the Panasonic UB820, like whenever I have, you can like control your tone mapping yourself. So it's all dependent. You know what I mean on what you want, but you can like add a $5,000-$6,000 Mad VR to it. I've seen a Mad VR hooked up to a television, and I didn't think it made that big of a difference. How they had it at Audio Advice Live, and I could be wrong, but this is what I noticed, right? With the Mad VR, at Audio Advice Live 2025, the one that I went to, they were playing a Harry Potter scene, right? And they were switching inputs. One to show you what the Mad VR would do, and one would show you what the television would do, right? What I noticed, maybe they didn't do this intentionally, I will say this, but what I noticed when I was there standing in person, they had a Mad VR hooked up, right? They played before they showed you what the Mad VR could do, they played you the Harry Potter on the television. And it was a 1080p signal. I'm sorry, a SD, I think 1080p signal. It said it on the screen. They switched inputs to the 4K, the Mad VR. Which is obviously 4K is just gonna look way better. You know what I'm saying? And be controlled like way better. Right? And they had you looking at the Mad VR and showing you the difference between the 4K version of Harry Potter and the SD version of Harry Potter. Obviously is a big difference. But some people may not have noticed that. You know what I mean? But I noticed that. But like if you I remember the image from the Mad VR, right? But they were running it on, I think it was a Sony, if I'm not mistaken, television. I went home, my TV's LG, ran the same Harry Potter, and it looked insane on my television. I don't need a Mad VR. My television handles all of that great. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. It's just all dependent. Like, do you want to spend the money on a project? Yeah, this stuff like this keeps dealers running, right? And we love dealers because we want to be able to get products easily for a discount. So that's a good thing. You want their business to run, but I also want my household to run. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to spend $20,000 on a projector, $14,000 on a projector, and then $5,000 or $6,000 on a Mad VR. Like a friend of mine, he's running dual PSA TV 2112 iPow subwoofers. He's got an Anthem AVM 90 like I got. And he's got, I can't remember what projector. He told me what projector. I can't remember. But he's got a Mad VR hooked up to it. It looks good on a projector. But like my television looks good. And I don't need a Mad VR. So I think the home theater realm for some people is changing. But some of the older people with a lot of money, they're just, retired, sit home, watch movies and stuff like that. They don't really mind like doing the whole investment and having $100,000 room and all that. Like, they don't mind stuff like that. So for them, have at it. You know what I'm saying? Or some people like, me, I can do it, but then I'm looking at, is it worth it? Is this projector going to give me a better experience than what I'm seeing on this OLED screen? If it does, I'm going to the projector. If it doesn't, I'm sticking with the OLED screen. And so far, me and my girl, we go to these conventions and seeing all these projectors and all these different places, and we have yet to see anything close to the LG G4. I've seen JVC get real close, but it was not real close, but close. But it was, Mad VR is hooked up to it. The laser projector is $20,000, and it's, I saved like $18,000 almost. Just in projector, just going with the television that looks better than a projector. So these are some things that you have to think about, like maybe home theater, maybe we have to open our minds up a little bit more to what is the home theater experience. Does it have to look like a cinema? Can the speakers be set up like a cinema, but the screen be a television? Or the screen or the the visual, the source be a television? Or does it have to be a projector? That's what you got to think. You know what I'm saying? I think there's pluses and minuses to them both. I think no matter how good the LG G4 looks, it doesn't give you the scope. Like when I'm watching Dune 2, on one of these projectors, and you see the main character. He's running over this, and he's about to ride the worm, right? And he's running through the dunes, right? He's running over a big mountain of sand. You get a bigger scale of what's going on with a projector that you can't get unless you have a massive television. You know, but then if you have like a, 150 inch or something like that, a bigger television, now what are you doing with your speakers? You can get that sense of scale, but now your speakers are in question. Where are you going to put them? I've seen people get creative, and they have their the center channel up above the television. Some people like have theirs super low below the television. You get creative, but then now you can't have, like maybe your entertainment system is a little off. Maybe you just have to do away with the entertainment system. But then now you got the two towers, so that where you gonna put those? Like that comes into play. So it forces people to get a little bit more creative, and then that's where a trade-off or something like that becomes a little bit more valued, right? Because the speakers may not be exactly where you want them positioned, but it can create the phantom imaging to get them to where they're supposed to be sound-wise. So because now the speakers are moved. So I don't know, man. It's just y'all tell me what y'all think. Do y'all like projectors or do you like televisions? Right now, television seems like it's where it's at. It's faster. No, like, if I choose to play a video game on the television, it's like little input lag, very little. Switch is fast. You know what I mean? And you're getting a high frame rate. Like a television, you can get 240 hertz frame rate. A projector, you're getting 60. If you, I haven't seen many of them. Maybe some of them do more than that. But, 60 hertz and 240 hertz is a lot different if you play in a video game. A lot different. Or even watching content. It's more lifelike, more fluidity with the movements. And movie-wise, you might get some movies that do 60 frames. Very few. I think the Will Smith movie does it. Very few will do it. You know what I mean? Most of them are 24 frames, or, whatever. So it doesn't matter what movie watching, but gaming comes into play. So y'all tell me what y'all think below, television or projector. What y'all think? You know what I'm saying? Tell me what y'all think down in the comment section below. Comment, rate, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think about that. Peace.